So we are going to cover creating an application. We want to go into the admin panel, go through a few of the steps on how easy it is to use the admin panel versus making HTTP calls. We will go over how to make those calls directly and the JSON. And a couple extra things. We'll go through some of the guides and where the SDKs are, etc. So let's begin. To register, just go to spawnpoint.com. Most of you already have an application that are in here. But for the people that don't, I'm going to do this. You just click register up in the corner. I'm going to use a test email, so I don't fill up my box. Preferably, if you're creating an app, you'll use your real email, or at least an email you can get to. You can always change the email later, but it's important to not just put in garbage in here. Let's make my organization Sean Corp. It's going to take away the space, lowercase, needs to be URL friendly, so it'll break it down. Of course, you can always change it if you decide you want the URL to be a little different than your official name, but I'll just leave it as Sean Corp. And just that easy. Let me save this for prosperity. Okay, it will send an email to you. You do not have to click that. It would help if you do for our purposes, but you do not have to. We'll go straight to the apps dashboard. Okay, so here we are in Sean Corp. We have no apps currently. Let's make two. Let's make one here. So it'll be Sean App 1. Again, you can make the app ID different if you want a different display name. We'll make a more official display name here. So Sean App 1. Okay. So this normally takes about 3 to 4 minutes to spin up an app. In the meantime, I want to talk about a tool I'll be using for most of our HTTP calls. It's called Postman. If you Google Postman, most people use this. You could use curl as well. You could use your browser for get calls. There are other services. Postman is extremely popular and extremely customizable. You can create an environment, you can create variables, very easy to use. Remembers past calls. I highly suggest downloading Postman. I will pull it up later when I start making calls to our application. We are almost done. Okay, so as you can see, we've created our app. Our URL will now be seancorp-seanapp1 at .sandbox.kineticloud.com. This password, you get one shot at it here. I would copy it and paste it somewhere that you can remember. Also, it will be emailed to you as well. So you have 2 spots. That's your shot at it. Make sure you keep that safe. So normally you would come here and create your client. You can use the built-in client, but preferably you create your own and use client credentials. Again, I will walk through that. We'll skip this step for now. I'd rather jump in about halfway through. So let's go to the step-by-step guide. Step-by-step guide will take us to the base URL. From here, you can access our documentation at GitHub wiki. And I'm mainly going to be going through these steps, like creating an application. And this is all here, the steps I'm doing right now, using the admin panel. So I'm going to walk you through these myself. But if you decide I don't want to watch video, I would prefer to just read documentation. You're welcome to do that too. And just for fun, in the background, I will spin up a second app. So you are not limited to just the one. Don't register another account to make another app. Just continue to build apps on here. Okay. The other links on here, the control panel will take you to your admin page. And again, this comes back to the password that you saved. The username is default admin, and the password, again, it was on that page and it was sent to your email, which again is why I say don't use a garbage email, use a real one. It's important. Did I type that in right? Oh, wrong password. Too many passwords. Okay. So again, everything's blank because this is brand new, but as your app is used, you will see the amount of users that are created, just general usage numbers on this dashboard page. For fun, we can go in and create a user, just users. So again, the admin is the only built-in user to start. There is a super admin, it's not shown here. The super admin is only if you were to completely break your account, maybe you got locked out somehow, we can come in and fix it. So let us create a new user. We'll say Bob432, join the site. We'll just make his password Bob432 for now. Again, this app will be tossed after this video. I will be getting into roles a little bit later. You do not have to pick a role. When you create a user, it will default to role user. So I could pick it here, it doesn't matter. Okay. Everything else is optional, whether you want to do the mobile number or date of birth, additional properties. Okay, so we'll just save that. Okay, that's good. Come back to the user page, and Bob432 is created. I will probably use that account later to show the difference between a admin account and a user account. And let's see if anything else. No, just this basic stuff. Okay. So now I would like to pull up Postman. And the first thing I would like to do is set up a test environment for the app we created. So we're going to click this settings wheel. We will add a new environment. We'll call it test video. Okay. And we are going to get the information about our app. I prefer to set a few variables. Again, these don't necessarily have to be this for you, but I find them to be useful for me. Okay, I'll jump back to Postman in just a second. There is something I definitely have to go over first, and that would be the, what I'm doing here. We'll just go to our base URL again. So on the base URL, if you click the API button, you will see every endpoint currently in the SPAWNPOINT Kinetic Cloud ecosystem. So let's pretend I say I wanted to add a user through a REST call. You'd come down to users. It would be a post call, post to users. It goes through in JSON every field that you can enter. You are able to do it in here if you would like. You come up to the authorize and you would put in your token information. To start, I would probably just use admin and the admin password. You can also, again, when you create an app, it goes through the client create, and you can create a CRM account, and you could use the client ID or client secret of your private account, or you can make a public one and use that as well down here in the just the regular password flow. So I'm going to do some CRUD things, and I will do them through Postman. The first thing I'll do is get an access token. The access token is the trickiest one of them all. The rest are pretty standard. It would be a post to /OAuth/token. Again, we are picking our test video environment that I just made with a base URL of the app. When you make a token call, you'd come into your headers and you would set a content type to form URL encoded. You would also, in your body field, we'll throw away all these just for now. So we can do this from scratch. Okay, we're going to use grant type password. We are going to use the client ID of Kinetic. That is the default one. Again, we'll come back to this once we create a CRM account, but I do want to show you just what's here default, ready to go before you create anything. Your username would be admin. And the password would be what we wrote down earlier. Again, this is for you. This would not be for if you were creating an application. You would never want to go through this flow. Again, this is another reason why we say create your own client, and you would make client credentials for the front end. And did I put in the right base URL? Probably put in admin. So let's get rid of this. Okay, this is standard OAuth 2. You have your access token. This is what we would be writing down. I may go into refresh tokens if I have time, but you could make a refresh token request with this token to get a new token and start this expiration back to 3600. 3600 would be your time before this token expires. It's at 3151 seconds right now because we logged into admin earlier. So we're reusing this token again. I'm just getting a token that technically already existed. So we'll copy that token and we just drop it here in our token variable, and then we can reuse this later. So super useful. Every call now can have that bearer token as a variable. So let's make a call to users. We'll just use one of these I could probably just pull it up. And again, this is why it's so useful. So I have a history of everything I do. We'll take this off and go over parameters later. So just a get call to /users. And again, that is documented in here. So right in here, a get call to users, you need no permissions, although they do matter, and I'll explain that in just a second. Okay. So I make a call to get users, and I am the admin. So I can see my account, I can see the super admin account I mentioned earlier, and I can see the user I just created. Because I am admin, I can see this information. When I connect later as Bob432, I will not be able to see the emails of anybody. Certain information is hidden based on your role. Role admin has permissions, one of them being a user admin that can see all information for users. So again, this is just a small tidbit into why permissions matter. If we want to pick just one user, it would be the ID of the user. So if we wanted to just get Bob, Bob's user ID was 3 here. So just be get users 3. And you can see more information about that user. Only the very basic information is included on that huge search just for speed purposes. So if you want more detailed information like their country code, you would need to select a user individually or do an Elasticsearch. I'm not covering Elasticsearch in this video, but incredibly useful, and we highly recommend doing any of your searches that way. Although we do have some built-in searches, so you could technically say filter by username, and we could just get Bob that way. Again, these are all the filters we have. You can filter by display name, email names. You can set tags on users. So you could say that certain users are part of like a Team Red or something and put a tag on there and search based on that. So a lot of things to search on. Page limit is for anything that's paginated, anything that could be tons of whether users, devices, articles, etc. The default is normally 25 for a page. You are welcome to pick a huge size if you would like. We don't suggest this. We would suggest that you use it as paginated, and use regular sizes unless you want to make huge slow calls. But you do have the ability to do that. Okay. So let's also create a user with the CRUD. So when I use CRUD, I come into Swagger for sure. It's going to help you know what the model looks like. So I would say I want to create a user. You come into here. Here's the example object. You would just copy this whole object. Now, obviously, if I post this object, it's not going to work. There are definitely things in here just as string that are going to break, the template for sure being one. And I do want to show you that to show what an error code would look like. Normally, you will get a error code number, and I will tell you where to reference that. It'd be in the error code list. I'll pull it up in just a second. You will get normally a message describing a journal ID and what the error is. So this is technically picking probably the additional property up here saying that you have to pick an actual valid value instead of string. And if it is something weird, you can't figure it out. The code doesn't help, the message doesn't help. We do have a request ID. So you would just email us or get into Slack, tell us what your environment is, give us this ID, and we will figure out what the problem is. So code 13, you could go to your error code list. We have every error code in the system on here. So 13 would be an invalid parameter. But again, there are many, and some are more specific than others. Like if you were trying to build a shopping cart, tell you, no, you can't modify that cart, 103. So easy to look up. These codes stay the same, we don't change them. So if you in your program want to hard code, like, oh, if status error code equals 103, then do this or something, you're more than welcome to do that. It won't change on you. Okay. I'm going to break this down into just the things that matter. So again, on our user post, we can see at the model what actually needs to be here. So anything with a asterisk. So the username has to be here. The email has to be here. The password needs to be here. We'll make sure that has an asterisk. And it would appear just those things. I'll probably throw in a display name just for my own purposes. So just those 4. Okay, and we have a new user. This is Scott Johnson. It will default fill in the country code and the currency code for whatever you have the default set to. I might jump into those to tell you how to change your defaults. Depends on how much time I have. So, okay, and we've created a user, Scott. Let's change some of his information. So Scott is ID 4. Normally when you want to change the information, you would do a get first. You would get the entire object, and then you're going to do a matching put on that object with the field you would like to change. So again, if you're REST savvy, there is put, there is patch. We do not support patch. So patch would be that you would say do a patch to users 4 with just the key you wanted to change. A put is everything. You need to include it all. So you would always do a matching get to make sure you got it all and then do the put. There are a couple things where the objects are a little more built out where we'll have a dedicated put. So there is a dedicated put when it comes to changing a password, for instance, at least for the users. And there are others. Again, results may vary. You need to go into the service and check for yourself. So here we go. So let's do a put, and let's change his name to, he changed his last name. Now it's Scott Walker. Ooh, wrong spot. Come into here. Now he's Scott Walker, and let's give him an actual official first name. And he's from Boston. Okay. But you'll get a 204 back. Puts are no content. Again, REST savvy. If you do a post, you'll get either a 200, 201. But it'll be usually 204. There might be a couple 200s in here. And then the same with delete. Okay, so we've created Scott Walker. And we have updated his information. Let's confirm it. Get users 4. He is now Scott Walker. His first name is now Scott. He's now Boston. Again, you have the ability to do everything and more with the REST endpoints. Although if you were editing just a user yourself like this and not with an application that's going to do something savvy for you, we highly suggest log into admin and edit this information through admin. So we just come in here, click Scott 4032. And if we want to make him now Bill, all right, so now he's Bill. Some things to note, the username is locked. You will not be able to change that username. Or will you? Okay, you can change it if it doesn't already exist. So username is unique. So if we tried to create another Bill Thorpe 432, I'm used to working with bigger apps, so you can't change that. There are a couple of extra fields on email. You could specify, if we go to the config section, this is also important. I normally work with REST more than our admin myself, because I am a developer, but I need to find this for you guys. So if I go to settings, yes, all the global configurations are in here. There are a couple for users, one of them being email. So in the user section, we could say, does an email need to be required? It is default true. We could change that and say that no, you can create a user account without an email. And the same with the email being unique. We could say that 4 different people could share a same global email. And again, you have the ability to change that. You just come over here to the edit arrow and you could add a little description on what you're doing, and you could change it to false if you wanted. Okay, so now I could create a account that has the same email, the same Bob432 email if I wanted. I would come through the settings and maybe just get a feel on the different values. Again, these are mentioned in the docs for the things that are important. The big ones are, say, like payment information. So if you're going to add like PayPal as a payment provider, you would come in here and provide like the client ID and secret that they talk about in their documentation when they say, okay, go to the server and add this information. For all the payment providers we support the proper server configs for you to put those values in. Okay. And one more thing to mention. So if we come back to Postman, again, basic CRUD, get, post, put, delete. Users is the only, not the only one, but there are a few, users being one. You cannot delete a user. We don't even have the call for it. Once you create a user, it's there. If you decided you wanted to wipe a user, and it is something we've discussed internally based on the new restrictions coming out of Europe for data cleaning, you could technically write a script to do a put on all the users you want to delete, basically making their information worthless, just some sort of random information. But we can't delete users completely, we have to keep those IDs, because if a user were to come in and buy something, and they would be on the invoice, and if we delete the user, we delete the ties to everything they've done. So in that sense, we keep the user. But when it comes to data cleaning, it is something we are discussing internally. For fun, let's also, on the user object, let's discuss additional properties. Again, this is what we provide for a user, but you are not limited to just the keys we give you. There are many things, users, groups, our articles, etc. Most of our services have an additional properties key. This is an object that you can provide, and that's described in our docs, actually. And you will define the field for it. So if you wanted to add a string field, you would just add a text key to it. So let's add one. So Bob has, or Bill now, we've changed his name 3 or 4 times. So let's go to Bob, users 3. So we will say that Bob has a favorite pet. And actually, before I do it in here, again, I want to show you just, it's much easier to do all this in admin than it is to do it with REST. But I do like to show both. So we would say text. We would call this favorite pet. Favorite pet figure. Save. So I do a get back on Bob. Now we have his favorite pet, again, Tigger. If we tried to edit that property with something that wasn't a string, that will go through actually. Yeah, text is a little different. Let's do a better example. So let's do a Boolean. And okay, that's right. Yeah. So it will go through and based on the properties of a Boolean, since you provided something, it considers it to be true. Actually might be something we'll look at. So let's change that back. Okay. So let's pretend as you're making users, you say, I want to make sure that every user has a favorite pet defined. And if they don't, I don't want them to be able to create a user. So for that, we would go to templates and we would create a template. So in here, we actually have another animal example, but this is for groups. So let's make a users template. You can actually copy this. Our template format is pretty standard throughout. And again, we can confirm it on get all these saved actually. So let's just get one that's dedicated to our API, so I don't have to keep doing this. Okay. So technically, you can come on, and templates can get really advanced. Definitely something that you're more likely to build an admin. So we will, because I have it open, we'll say post user templates. And we will call this user template 1. We will make this our favorite pet. We will say it is required. And we will say that the max length of our pet has to be, say, 10 characters for this one. And type in user. Okay. You can note that ID. Actually, I'll just copy these two real quick. Do a git on user templates. So just in case you want to remember, okay, what all have I created? And this fills it out in a little more advanced structure when you do a git versus the very small object that it took to actually make it. Describing all the possible fields you could have implemented. Okay. So normally you would have a form where people fill out their information, and when people go to create their user, you would also add to the form maybe a hidden value or something after the fact. And you would say that and I believe it is called template. So yep, template. And you're going to paste that template ID in there. Okay, so now we are creating John Johnson, John, okay. And because we have that template ID, it says that we are missing our favorite pet. So now that is a forced thing that we have to add. So let me just cheat real quick here and get that favorite pet object. We can come back to the post that we just did. Again, the reason why I use Postman for all this is really easy to jump back and forth. And there you go. So now John can be created with his favorite pet. So yeah, definitely dive into those additional properties for projects we've created and for other people's projects. Most people use these. We can't guess all the different values you want. We try to put in the ones that are standard for a user, but can't account for everything. So additional properties, unlimited, do whatever you want. Great, tons of them if you go wild. Just another note here. So all these date fields, these are epoch standard. So if we could Google an epoch converter, just Unix timestamps. If if you want to know exactly what time something is. There you go. So UTC is 4 hours ahead of Eastern time, which is what I'm on. So all checks out. I want to come back to the wiki real quick. Again, we're diving into services. Before you tackle a service, I suggest coming into here. If you say, I want to create articles, come into here, look at the article service. It'll tell you, you can click there to go right to the spot in Swagger, so you don't have to go search for it. Sometimes it can be a little cumbersome to find things. Myself confused. Okay. Yeah, come in here and click what you want to learn more about first. It's going to go over usually the creation of something, potentially editing it, but again, once you get the handle of CRUD, very easy. Just puts and gets after the fact. So yeah, very basic. Some things that are a little more broken out, like leveling, we'll describe a little more. And how to use BRE, which I'm not going to dive into today, but very advanced. Our rule engine system. Say you were creating a leveling system for a game, so you have levels 1 through 10, and when a user gets from 1 to 2, you can make a rule to say if a user starts at 1 and goes to 2, award him this item in his inventory. That can all be written out in a rule. Very easy to use, an admin. While I prefer to make REST calls as a developer, that is the one thing that is so much easier to do in admin. And really the only thing I personally do in admin other than maybe change a config file. Okay. I do want to go back and talk about permissions. So every endpoint, and it will be listed in Swagger, what you can and can't do. Most of our endpoints are open, like the gets. Everybody can see, say, an article. When it comes to creating something or deleting something, you will normally need a permission. So all our services have dedicated user and admin permissions for each of them. So you need to be articles admin to post an article. Right? You need to be articles admin to delete an article or edit an article. But just getting them, anybody can do that. And there are a few that you actually have to be a defined user versus someone that's not logged in. So another note on that, the roles are basically a wrapper for permissions. So at the moment, we have 3 that are relevant to you. Role user, anytime you create a user, like when I created Bob and Steve and whatever, they were all given role user. As admin, I can actually check my role if I want. So I can do a get users. It would be me. And it would be me. Okay. The me endpoint will tell you about your logged in user. So I'm logged in as admin. It shows every role I have. As admin, I'm given both role admin and role user. So a huge list of roles that I have. If I double back and log in as Bob, which I want to do in just a second, we'll see this role list. Basically, it'd be just everything _ user. So again, as a user, I can do anything Git related, but creating things varies as just a user. So let's do that now. If I wanted to not be admin anymore, I could just come in here and so I'm Bob 432 now. And let's go get an OAuth token for Bob. So instead of admin password, we could make this password. And instead of username, we could make this username. So again, these are variables that are referenced from our environment. So we have password here, which is going to tie to password. We'll have username tied to username, base URL up here, tied to our base URL. And make sure you're only selecting the things you're actually using. So if I were to try to provide a broken client secret, it would likely confuse and break. Okay. So now we're logged in as Bob. We would pick that token out. We would drop it into our token field. And I'm not sure if I've covered this, but if we were to make a users call, just general users, note that my headers, these are important. Content type, almost always application JSON. Sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. It does not hurt to just always have it included. And this is where you put in your token for your request. So authorization is the key, value is bear space, and then your token. Again, I make it a token variable, so I don't have to keep coming in and typing this in all the time. Many reasons to keep using Postman. Again, as I said before, now that I'm a user, when I try to check all the users, I can see who exists, but what's only publicly displayable. So their display name, sure, but I don't get to see their username. I don't get to see their email because I don't have rights to it. Again, this is hidden from you globally. So if because I'm Bob, I could technically come in and check my information and see it there. But if I wanted to look at somebody else's information, again, it would all be hidden from me. So just the display name. Yeah, so nothing useful. Just the number of users I'd be able to see. And again, let's go back and look at my roles. Bob is just a user. By default, he is just given user information. Now, if you said, I want Bob to be a user, but I want Bob to be able to create articles, then you could, and we'll do this in admin. You could pick Bob, and then you could give him the oh, that's right. To cheat for now, we could say, okay, Bob is also role admin, and Bob could create articles along with a bunch of other things. To give a user again, this is another reason why it's good to know the API. If we come into auth roles and auth permissions, yep, that's right. So we would make a new role. We could say that this role allows people to edit articles. So we'll just do that now. So we will come into roles. Okay, and let's make a new one. So we have an article role now. And yeah, very, very open on what you're able to set for read and write. So I would like to say that in the article role, you can read and write articles. Okay. Although I technically didn't have to do the underscore role because it's gonna add that to begin with, but that's fine. Okay. And then let's come back to this user. Let's give him article role. Okay. And so now that he has that, he would be able to edit articles. And another reason I went into this, because people might get confused. When you create an OAuth token, the roles and permissions of that token are set to that. So it's not just going to magically show up for him at this moment. Like he's not going to. Yeah, he's not going to have that role on there. So what we need to do then, we would have to go in and validate his token. So as we can see, Bob is logged in right now. We'll revoke it. Okay. So now we revoke that token. Bob can't log in anymore. Well, at least not with that token. He'll have to do a new one. And if you were to say remove a user from the system, you didn't want him to be able to log in anymore, you could change his password, and then you could come into here in the sessions and you could delete his session. So that'd be the twofold way of doing it. Now he can't log in anymore. He is blocked. But I just leave this session. I didn't change his password, so he can re-log in. So he's got a new token. And as we can see now, he is in articles admin as well, because I created that role and I created the read and write permission, which would be articles user and articles admin, and now he has it. So, so not that hard. Once you create the role, you could create your individual users and put that role on to begin with when you create them. Again, this could all be scripted, or you can do it with admin, one of the two. It's up to you. We are actually running a little over at the moment, so I will be cutting this now, but I would like to revisit some of these things and go into a little more in depth. I know we didn't get to create the client. I will do that actually. So real quick, let's. This is what I get for trying to type something in. Okay. Okay. It was an API access keys. Again, we got so many things in admin, I'm not in it all the time, just for things that are much easier to do outside of admin. So, okay, so clients create. This is actually step 2 of when you are setting up your account. It is recommended that you set up your own client. So for Sean app, our client ID could be Sean app server. This would be our private key that you could put on if you've got your own like Node.js backend or whatever. And this would give you role admin access. So you could have interceptors that come in and do admin related things. You would not want to use this on the front end, obviously. And you can randomize your secret, or you could put in something really basic if you want to. Don't suggest that, but you can. So I will note this value here. Okay, a new client. And then if I come up back to the OAuth token, now I have a client credentials. And we are going to drop that client secret in there. So grant type is now client credentials, not password. We would need our client ID, which was Sean app server. Yep. So client ID, client secret, which we made a variable. Again, let's make that a variable too. Always suggested to just make variables for things that you don't have to, you can change them easier. Okay. Mess something up. I don't want 2 client IDs. Okay. Okay. As you can see, the expiration date is massive. I don't know if that's like a month or a year or whatever. Up much longer. And again, your access token. So this would work then the same as before with your access token calls. You were just role admin. And preferably, we make a front end one. This was what your app would use. You are a role user. We are giving you grant types of password and refresh token. So this is not going to be a client credentials grant type. A little example of how you could do it. Okay. Again, I dove into that. So yeah, we are running short on time. Yeah, so many things I'd like to cover. Again, this was getting started. With the information I've covered here, you should be able to create an app. You should be able to at least play around. When you create an app, you'll get an email. It has our Slack channel in it. Please join Slack. Please ask questions. We have devs in there pretty much 24/7. You'll probably get a response within 15 minutes. At the most, worst case scenario, if you messaged at 2 a.m., you'd have to wait till midday on a weekend or something. You're going to get quick responses. So if you have questions, please email us. Please get in the Slack. We will definitely get back to you. I hope this covers enough for you to play around. Again, always looking for feedback. Thanks for your time, and I will hopefully hear from you.